just north of Dallas, Texas, placid Lake Lewisville is a fisherman's and pleasure boater's dream. But for the second consecutive summer, it explodes with the raw power of unlimited hydroplane racing. Steve David, driving the T+, may know the secret of success on this lake. He won his first race here in last year's inaugural. But Mark Tate has a running start this season as he took Smokin' Joe's to the Gold Cup at the previous race in Detroit. These two drivers both have a streak at stake today on ESPN Speed World. The second of 8 events in the 1994 Unlimited Racing Commission Hydroplane Series, the 94 Texas HydroFest in the chase for the Eagle Snacks O'Doul's High Point Championship.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Hendrick at Lewisville Lake, the second stop in the Thunderboat Tour 1994. They say things are big in Texas. Weather-wise, you can really bet on that. We've had the most rain, the highest wind I've ever seen, and even tornadoes around in the area. It's been chaotic trying to qualify these boats. Steve David, defending champion in the T+ for this event, says water looks better today, but don't let it fool you. There are rollers out there. It could be dangerous on the back chute. And through all this adversion, high wind, water, weather, you name it, the top 3 boats have qualified within 1 mile an hour of each other. For more on that, let's go to Dick Crippen.
Thank you, Jim. Well, the fastest boat in the field is right behind me. It's the Exide Batteries boat driven by Mark Evans. Mark, the conditions were not ideal when you went out to set that, but you did get fast time.
Yes, we did. Crew went wild over that one. I was pretty excited myself. The conditions were very lumpy. We just had to keep the boat as stable as possible, but we came up with a really good setup for the wind conditions.
And as you prepare for race today, the boat is being worked on.
Yeah, when you come down the end of the chute, you better get on the flaps just a little bit to settle the boat down, and you hit the waves pretty hard. So basically just knocked a little bit of the paint off the front, and no big deal. We're ready for today.
Well, this will not be the first action of the weekend here in Lewisville, Texas. There was some action yesterday, and Steve Montgomery has a report on that.
Well, Dick and Jim, the big story here in the pit area, as it has been throughout the season so far, is the status of the Budweiser racing team. Last week it was Mike Hansen taking over for injured Chip Hanauer, and again, Mike will be in the cockpit of Miss Budweiser. Yesterday, in the 3-lap shootout for the 3 fastest qualifiers, Hansen and the Bud raced against Mark Tate in the Smokin' Joe's and Mark Evans in the Miss Exide. As Mike Hansen took the lead in Miss Budweiser, near the completion of lap 1, the boat hit a big roller, went high in the air, and got out of attitude. We didn't know until about a lap later Miss Budweiser had been damaged. Pieces began to fly off of the right rear planing surfaces of the boat. He lost a ski that normally keeps the transom up off the water. He lost a tiplet that helps control the attitude of the boat, particularly if the nose comes up. Mike was able to complete the heat, in fact winning the shootout. But when the boat got back to the pit area, the crew discovered they had rather serious damage to Miss Budweiser. The pieces that were gone could not be replaced. What the crew has done is simply button up that area, strengthen it as much as possible. They hope now that they can get through 4 laps of racing. They'll take it a little bit easy, trying to get Miss Budweiser through this long, very tough day of racing. We'll want to keep our eye on this boat, particularly in the turns.
As the boats get prepared for the first heat, we'll see how the Miss Budweiser holds up and how she fares against her first 3 opponents. The 1994 Texas HydroFest is sponsored by O'Doul's, what beer drinkers drink when they're not drinking beer, and by Eagle Snacks for the crunch you crave. The Texas HydroFest, Lake Lewisville, Texas, and look at the crowd. A great turnout for the race today as the boats come out onto the water. Jim, it's going to be a good lineup. Let's take a look at it for the first heat.
And they're all high qualifiers, Dick. We're going to see Miss Budweiser driven this race by Mike Hansen. Also, we'll be having Smokin' Joe, Steve Woomer's boat, driven by Detroiter Mark Tate, winner of the Gold Cup last race. And then it'll be Dave Vilwalk, an American Dream, owned by Fred Leland. It'll be Ed Cooper Jr. and Senior's combination boat, A2 Communications with Mitch Evans at the wheel.
From inside out, it is the Miss Budweiser in lane number 1. Smokin' Joe's, the yellow boat, in lane number 2. Pico's American Dream in lane number 3. And the pace boat on the outside is the A2 Communications boat of Mitch Evans. They get the flag. They are off and running. That's the way they're going to hold their lane down into turn number 1. They've got to be very, very cognizant of each other as they go into the turn. Budweiser is in the lead. American Dream second on the outside, and as they come around wait a minute! Smokin' Joe's has gone over.
Smokin' Joe's come out of that lane number 2. I don't know what happened. There was an awful lot of water down here, Dick, and you can see that the boat is okay. Landed right side up. The strobe light is on. Driver seems to be okay.
The officials rule for the race to continue at this point because the strobe light did come on. That is the indication from the driver to the officials that he's okay. American Dream, Dave Vilwalk, has taken the lead momentarily. He's got a battle on the inside from the red boat, the Miss Budweiser.
And as the Budweiser swings wide at the apex of turn 1, watch Vilwalk come over, squeeze him a little bit, then go away again. We've just had word now from the official tower that Dave Vilwalk and the Pico's American Dream has been disqualified. They say it was his wake, crossing over, squeezing off the lane, that caused the accident to Smokin' Joe's.
So it'll be a clear sail for Mike Hansen at 138 miles per hour for our Sea-Doo lap speed. He has good, clean water ahead of him and no competition, although the Pico's American Dream continues to run just in case there's any sort of debate on the official's decision. Dave Vilwalk will keep the boat in second place. A little bit of wake action out there as the Miss Budweiser flies high, gives the crowd a little bit of a wave. Now, because of the disqualification, the U3 A2 Communications, Mitch Evans, the only piston-powered boat in the field, has now moved up to second place, again showing that sometimes the piston packer is a little bit more reliable than the turbines, and if you just hang in there long enough, good things can happen to you.
With the non-trip service gone, Mike Hansen has his hands full of the Miss Budweiser, wildly coming off of corner number 4 to take the checker flag at Heat 1A. Second place overall will go to Mitch Evans in the A2 Communications boat.
And a good ride from Mitch Evans as we look at the boat on the course. Wait a minute, a fire! Fire on the Smokin' Joe's. The rescue craft are heading over there. Mark Tate is still in the cockpit. He's coming out now. The canopy was up on the boat. He may have tried to restart the boat, and the heat from the engine and the sparks and what have you ignited a fire. You can see the flames on there clearly now.
And the fire rescue crew working quickly, and they have snuffed the fire. That'll save the crew a lot of work. Steve Woomer, the owner, very concerned as he looks through the binoculars at the Smokin' Joe's.
A little bit hard to see what's happening on the course. Now, this is not a fire aboard the Pico's American Dream. What happened here is he shut it down. That engine is so hot that the water comes back up into it and causes a lot of steam. We're looking now back at the Smokin' Joe's, and you can see that it's white smoke, so the fire essentially is out. Jim, let's take a look at what happened in that incident.
In lane number 1, the red boat is Miss Budweiser. Lane 3 is the blue boat, which is Pico's American Dream. Somewhere in the middle is the Smokin' Joe's, catches the rooster tails end over end, barrel rolls it to the right, ends right side up. Let's go down to Steve Montgomery.
Jim, was Mark able to tell you what happened?
No, he just wanted to know if there was a penalty called, and then he evidently was trying to restart the motor. And evidently we had some fuel loose in the boat. It caught the rear cowling on fire. We had a pretty good blaze out there.
Sometimes those fires aren't as bad as they look. We hope that's the case.
Yeah, me too. We'd kind of like to get into the next heat.
As they tow the boat back in, let's take a look at the results from a rather bizarre Heat 1A.
And it's a 3-lapper, as they all are, until the final. Miss Budweiser, Mike Hansen first, A2 Communications with Mitch Evans second. Smokin' Joe's did not finish because of the accident, and disqualified was the American Dream.
How serious is the damage to the Smokin' Joe's? That's the question here at Lewisville Lake in Texas right at the moment as you look out at some of the damage done to the boat. That's all surface damage. What's underneath, we don't know, but boy, you can tell that Mark Tate is concerned about the rest of the day of racing. Back at Lake Lewisville, they're clearing away the debris from the fire aboard the Smokin' Joe's, but this is by far not the only boat that was damaged in this event. Let's go down to Jim with the winner of Heat 1A.
Down here in the Budweiser pits, they put this boat back together with baling wire, chewing gum, and duct tape, and not too shabby.
No, they did an excellent job. The Budweiser crew is the best in the world at putting a boat rack together and getting a boat ready to run. I mean, it's one thing to put it back together, it's another to put it back together and make it a first-place runner.
So the Budweiser is back and running. Meanwhile, they're trying to get the Smokin' Joes running again as they repair the damage. Let's check in with driver Mark Tate.
You know, it's just an unfortunate racing incident. I don't really know what happened from my point of view to really know if whose fault it was, Mike's or David's. And talking to David, he feels Mike Hansen took a big hop in the first turn, and it sounds like the inside turn judge called the same thing. So I don't know what took place.
Did your boat track through the turn okay, or did you skip out a little?
No, I held my lane. I was in my lane the whole time. I never made a move, and all of a sudden my lane was totally disappeared, and I don't know where the infraction came from.
How did the damage on the boat look to you when you were riding it back here?
The damage is very sincere. We don't have any front canard wings. We don't have a rear wing uprights, and the deck's burnt, and who knows what the gearbox and interiors look like.
And obviously drivers in unlimited hydroplane racing don't only drive, they work on the boats too. Let's go to the lineup for Heat 1B.
And it'll be in lane 1, the Miss X side. And that'll be driven by Mark Evans, the Tide, driven by Nate Brown in lane number 2. And on the outside, the U2T Plus, owner Jim Harvey, the driver Steve David. Here they come.
3 boats down for the start. We watch to see if the officials like it. They do. They throw the flag, and we have 3 boats. Plenty of room this time around. Maybe they learned the last time. I don't know. But nobody, it appears, will be pinched on the turn going down into corner number 1.
Let's repeat what we said earlier. There is a high wind here on Lake Lewisville today. It is straighting up the water. Our cameras, well, it looks like it's smooth water, but it's not. It's very lumpy, and these boats and these drivers are being put to the test here today.
Mark Evans is doing a fine job on the X side, on the inside, on the outside of him in lane number 2. The orange boat is the Tide, driven by Nate Brown, and that's where your battle is right at the moment. Look at the X side try to creep up ever so slightly on the Tide boat. He'll try to even it up. Meanwhile, on the far outside, it is the T Plus. T Plus, Stephen David really coming on strong, trying to hold his speed. The boat on the inside will have the advantage because he's running a shorter course, and you can see X-Side has taken that advantage. Look from the inside of the T Plus. This is what Stephen David is seeing. Just off to his left, you see the boat and rooster tail from Nate Brown in the Tide.
Not too fast as Unlimiteds go. Lap number 1 for the lead boat, Miss X-Side, only 125.4. You know they can go faster than that. It's the water, Dick.
They are hitting a lot of the waves out there. As you look at the rooster tails, especially on the turns, they tend to break apart a little bit. That's an indication that the boat is bouncing. While they are bouncing, it's interesting to compare the boats. It appears that the Tide is riding a little bit heavier in the water than the X-Side boat. That gives them the advantage coming out. Tide takes the lead away again from X-Side. Mark Evans again now on the straightaway is getting his feel back in the water. He's a little bit light, but he's trying to catch him. He knows on the turn he'll have the advantage again. Meanwhile, on the far outside to the left of your screen, the man trying to hold the high speed is Steve David.
And look at the Tide come on now and take the lead at the end of 2 laps. So the lead has changed from lap to lap, and still the T Plus on the left of your screen, still very much a challenger.
They talk about the restrictors that they have put on these boats, 138 miles per hour, a good lap speed for Mark Evans, but he's going to have to find a little bit more. As we look from the T Plus, you see nothing but rooster tails. Right at this point, Steve David is trying to figure out how he can take advantage of that outside water to get up and get even with those guys. But so far, it appears the Tide may have too much power. If he does not, then certainly X-Side does. He's got the advantage.
And it looks like the checker flag is waiting. It's going to be a drag race off that corner number 4, Dick. And it looks like Mark Evans on the inside has the advantage.
Mark Evans coming up, and is he going to do it as they come down to the finish line? Mark Evans has him by about a nose. Nate Brown trying to find a little bit of extra power. The final turn now, and let's see what happens. Nate Brown looked like he might have taken it, but it is Mark Evans. Mark Evans comes up and nips him as you go across the finish line inside the X-Side. Look at this finish, Jim.
Oh, that was very, very close. You can see the orange boat, the Tide, coming up on the X-Side as the checker flag, and that's the finish. A half a boat length. 400 points for first place for the X-Side, the Tide second, T Plus was third.
Good neck-to-neck racing, and we'll see more of that from Lake Lewisville when we come back. Welcome back to Lewisville, Texas, a rather picturesque place, teeming with water recreation opportunities. HydroFest Chairman Pete Hammerly says that it takes over 1,000 volunteers to put on this fine HydroFest. They're stationed on land and in the water, and we certainly want to take our hats off and tip them their way and give them thanks for all their efforts. Now let's go down for a winner's interview from our last heat with Steve Montgomery.
You two guys really hooked it up, Mark. Great boat race.
Oh, Steve, I thought he had us for sure, man, because I was all I could do to get anything out of the corners, and Nate was on the outside and had a little bit of lead on me. I just hung on for all it was worth.
I was thinking the same thing about him.
It was this close.
I looked over and I said on the radio, I said, was that a dead heat? Was that a dead heat? Because I was looking at Mark's eyeballs cross finish line.
I know.
Mark, I understand you have a small fine for an infraction. Did you know you encroached?
Oh, no, that figures. I probably did.
Did you really?
Oh, no.
Didn't take the heat away, though. This is your first official win as an X-side.
Well, good. I appreciate it, man. We were running close, and I enjoy running next to Nate. He's a great driver, and I trust him a lot. So sorry about that if that's what happened. But
well, the feeling's mutual, except next time I want to be in front of you, okay, buddy?
We'll work that out. Okay. Thank you much, you guys. Thank you.
Now checking the lineup for Heat 2A, and look who's back. It'll be Mark Tate and Smokin' Joe's, thanks to the quick work of crew chief Jim Lucero. The rest of his crew, Mark Dumars, Butch Corning, Tim McDonald, Kenny Washer, Jamie Ropp, Ken Strickland, and Barney Tafter. Hats off, guys.
Boy, that boat looks brand new, and I'm sure Mark Tate has confidence in his crew, and he'll be able to find the speed in it for sure. Here's the T Plus going out. Now, this is the boat that is the defending champion. Steve David took his first win here last year.
93 was a great year. We started off building the new two-wing boat and won the Texas race with our older boat, and then constantly worked on the two-wing boat to try to perfect it. And it started coming into its own at Seattle, where we won a couple of heats, and at Hawaii, it all kind of came to a crescendo where we had everything together that we needed. And then, of course, in the final heat, raised the world record by several miles an hour, and the boat really performed as we had expected ultimately would. 94 is going to be a different situation with the fuel restrictors, and we'll have a lot of work to make that boat work with less horsepower. I think in any competitive event, preparation is the large majority of winning, and when you win, it's a result of that preparation. So really, before the race is the most important aspect. The race is just a culmination of everything that came before. So I looked at preparation to be the majority of it, and then, of course, the most important part is to win. Of course, Dallas, Texas is one of the finest race courses in the country because we won the first one. But it is a great race course. A little windy, a little rough, but a real exciting 2-mile course. So it's obviously one of my favorites.
Now, one of the things Steve David likes is his boat rides a little light. He gets up on top of the wave action here. The start of Heat 2A right off the bat. Who goes to the front? Mark Tate in Smokin' Joe's. As they come down into turn number 1, remember, this is a dangerous turn. All the boats would like to get to that inside lane. They must hold their lanes, and they're doing a beautiful job of it now. On the far outside, Pico's American Dream, Dave Vilwalk, very good control of his boat. On the inside, the orange boat tied. Nate Brown has taken the lead.
But not without a challenge from Steve David in the T Plus in lane number 2. And also look at Smokin' Joe's and Mark Tate. Little light on the front end, and he's going to be challenged down in corner number 3 on this first lap as we look inside the cockpit of the T Plus.
And you can tell they're riding deck to deck because you don't see out of the cockpit of the T Plus, you do not see a boat in front of them or alongside, which means they are flat right next to each other. Steve David, the defending champion in the overall event here in Lake Lewisville, now is your lead boat, the T Plus, and he's doing a great job. Gets a little bit light, but he does like to drive that boat light.
And look at the arc right now as the T Plus goes to the forefront over the Smokin' Joe's, who in second, and the inside in third place is the Tide.
We're seeing some great driving out here by these guys. Now, you know, it's good to remind everybody that these are just like the old dirt track racers. That back end kind of slides out as they go into the turn. The big skid fin grabs a hold of it and actually throws a second rooster tail off the boat in the turns. Right now, that skid fin is not operating. They want it razor sharp to cut through the water, and you can see a great shot of the Smokin' Joe's there. There's your distance between first and second place. There you saw the T Plus kind of jerk around. All of a sudden, that back end swung around, the skid fin kicked in, and he got control of the boat so it didn't slide out on him. Good driving by Steve David.
And for the second lap in a row, Steve David's T Plus, 135 plus mile an hour as we look at our third place boat, the Tide with Nate Brown driving.
Now you'll have to remember that as we look at the speed for Steve David, the Tide boat actually rode nose to nose with Exide in the heat just before this. Now he's having a little trouble trying to catch up to the other two boats. Smokin' Joe's in second, and this boat, the T Plus, in first. It looks like Steve David is going to take the win over the Smokin' Joe's, but I got to say again, give credit to the Smokin' Joe's crew for getting that boat out there, and then give credit to Mark Tate for having faith in his crew and the repair work they do to take that boat at top speed to a second place.
I'll tell you something I'm noticing, that when he gets enough speed, his front end comes up. I think that his ailerons in the front might have been damaged in the accident. Steve David will be the winner of Heat 2A, and here's your second place boat, which is Smokin' Joe's with Mark Tate, and I think we have problems with those front wings. They don't look like they're moving. Here's your final order of finish. T Plus, Smokin' Joe's, Tide, and American Dream.
Well, we have a great winner in Steve David, taking perhaps his first stab at coming back to repeat as champion. Now, as he gets settled in down in the pit area and talks to his crew, let's remind you that if you would like to get a little bit more involved in unlimited hydroplane racing, it's easy to do. You can join the URC Fan Club. How do you do that? Well, you contact the Unlimited Racing Commission at 414 Pontius Avenue North, Suite C, Seattle, Washington, 98109, or call the number on your screen. Jim Hedrick is standing by with the winner of our last heat.
Steve David, you said earlier there was holes out there. Does that still hold true?
Yeah, we're still out there discovering where they are. I guess we're just discovering them faster than everybody else is.
All right, now, the wind conditions. What is it going to take for a driver to win here today?
This is going to be a real driver's race. It's very windy, and not everyone's able to leg it all the way around, so it's just getting the most you can out of the boat and still making sure you bring it back right side up.
We've had a lot of action, but we've got more to come. Stay with us. Welcome back to Lake Lewisville. Dick Crippen along with Jim Hendrick and Steve Montgomery as you look at the Miss Budweiser with Mike Hansen on board. Chip Hanauer was injured in the race up in Detroit, the Gold Cup, just a week ago, and now Mike Hansen is in the seat. He'll be in lane number 2, Miss Exide, Mark Evans. In lane number 1, in the boat you see there, Mitch Evans. A2 Communications in lane number 3. Let's go down to Steve Montgomery and check on the Smokin' Joe's.
Here in the Smokin' Joe's pit, the boat looks pretty much like it normally would after a heat, except for some scorching on the deck and a lot of activity up here in the front. The canards had to be replaced after the incident in 1A. Jim Lucero and another crew member now are still working on the canard. There was also some attention paid to the escape hatch, which did not appear to be fastened properly when the boat got back here. But all in all, things here in the Smokin' Joe pit are returning to normal.
Down the pit, Jim Hendrick has a special guest.
Down here with Johnny Rutherford of IndyCar fame. And Johnny, what brings you to this race?
Well, I've always been an enthusiast of the unlimited hydroplanes, and of course I live in Fort Worth, so it's right over here, and Howard Lenderston and the guys with T Plus are running here today. In fact, they just won a heat, so we're pretty excited about that, and it's a great place to be.
Some years ago, you broadcast these races on NBC with Paul Page. That was in the early 80s, I believe. What changes have you noticed?
Oh, I'll tell you, a lot of changes. They've gone indoors. All the drivers are in capsules now, and they're much safer than they used to be. I can remember seeing Tommy Deeth get washed down at Clear Lake and broke his nose and nearly broke his wrist, I think, and it crushed the windshield, knocked the steering gear out of it. So they're much safer now with the canopies on them. The drivers are safe. The boats are turbine powered now, and there were a lot of the Merlin, Rolls-Royce, and Griffon engines back then. So
would you get in one now?
I can't swim that fast.
Johnny Rutherford, former Indy 500 winner, and he's in our pits today viewing these races. As you look out on the course now, it looks like the Exide is going to be first across the line as they start Heat 2B. Mark Evans in the Exide. He's being challenged in lane number 2 by the Miss Budweiser. And again, we remind you that Mike Hansen is aboard that boat because of the injury to Chip Hanauer in the Gold Cup in Detroit.
And look at the Exide come off of that exit pin. Number 2, start down the back chute, and running very well as we look inside the cockpit now of the Miss Exide, driven by Mark Evans.
A little bit of rough water. You can see the canard wings on this boat as they kind of bounce up and down in there. He controls that with his left foot. The accelerator is the right foot. The wings, the wing flaps on the front of the boat are controlled by the left foot. Here's the Miss Budweiser. Now, this is a boat that was damaged in some runs yesterday, and they are running without that tiplet in the back, and that kind of stabilizes the back end of the boat. So Mike Hansen is really operating under a handicap, and look at him go.
And look at the Budweiser hanging on the hook there in lane number 2, Dick. Now, this is the most dangerous part. Right about here, as he starts to make his exit out of a turn, He does not have that right rear non-trip surface intact, and that could be dangerous. As we can see out of the front window of the X-side, the boat he's trying to catch, the Miss Budweiser.
Some real hard racing by both of these drivers. Now you can see that the Miss Budweiser is riding light. From inside the canopy of the X-side, you can see the Miss Budweiser right ahead of him. Now the X-side is riding tight on the buoys, trying to hold his lane in there. He hit a buoy. He just hit a buoy, Jim.
And I believe that'll cost him 1 lap penalty. If that's the case, it'll be the A2 Communications with Mitch Evans moving up to second place. We'll have to wait for official word.
That would be the second time today that Mitch Evans has come in with a second place in the only piston-powered boat in the field. A good ride from Mike Hansen. The boat getting a little bit light on those turns, Jim.
Well, it's official now as we look inside the X-side, driven by Mark Evans. His brother Mitch is going to get second place because Mark has been penalized 1 lap for hitting the buoy as we look at our leader coming around to take the checker flag here in Heat 2B.
Mike Hansen, who had to have the seat adjusted and the pedals adjusted inside the Miss Budweiser. He is a little bit shorter than the normal driver, Chip Hanauer, so they actually had to reconfigure the inside of that cockpit to fit him into that boat, because when a driver's inside an unlimited hydroplane, he is in there tight. And Mike Hansen is also in there as the winner of Heat 2B. He has got to be feeling mighty good about things right at the moment. Here's your second place boat, Mitch Evans, and we're inside the boat that is third in the running because of the penalty, the 1 lap penalty. Miss Budweiser, A2 Communications, and Miss X-side 1, 2, 3 in Heat 2B. 400 points for each first place. Miss Budweiser, with 2 of them, has 800 points on the day. There, the Miss Budweiser pulls into the pits. You might have wondered about the wing structure on the back of these unlimited hydroplanes. That was Ron Brown's topic in the Eagle Snacks Performance Corner.
Hi, I'm Ron Brown, the team manager of the Miss Budweiser. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about a rear wing on the Miss Budweiser. In car racing, the rear wing is used for downforce, so the car will stick to the traffic. In hydroplane racing, it's somewhat different. We use this rear wing as a stabilizer. In the wind tunnel, we have learned where the zero setting of this wing should be. As the boat pitches up, the wing will make a correction for it and bring the front of the boat down, very similar to the elevator would be on an airplane. As the race course and conditions change and dictate to us what we need to do, we can move this wing as much as just 1/4 of an inch would give us 500 pounds of downforce or 500 pounds of lift at the propeller on the Miss Budweiser.
And let's stay with the Miss Budweiser crew as they welcome home the winner of Heat 2B.
Mike, you're the only guy in the park with 800 points. Going great so far.
Hey, that's going great. That means if we can keep it up, we'll have lane selection for the final. And this thing's going to be hard to beat if we're in lane 1 or 2. There's no doubt about it.
Is it searching a little right at the exit pin?
Not really. I'm just a little gun shy. I don't want to tear the back end up any more than we already have this weekend. So just trying to keep the thing in one piece, get our points, get it in the final.
And Bernie, you're real unhappy with the driving job.
He didn't do anything I tell him to do. I told him to back off and take it easy, you know. And he did, but he had to be first, and I'm sure proud of him.
Back at Lewisville, Texas. Welcome back to the Texas HydroFest. And the Hydros are already on the water for the start of Heat 3A.
And you see Mark Tatus in lane 1 with Smokin' Joe's. Mitch Evans in A2 Communications lane 2, the Tide lane 3, and on the outside, the American Dream.
That's Dave Villwock, and he'll pace the boats down to the start line, and it's a good start. They bring them down and try to line them up, and when they're even in the eyes of the referees, they throw the flag to start the race. Dave Villwock taking the lead as they go into the first corner. But with that lead on the outside, it's in danger. Watch the inside boat. Smokin' Joe's has come up on the inside and led there as they start to even up coming out of the turn. Tide now has evened up with the Smokin' Joe's. Both of them are now trailing the American Dream. Pico's American Dream is your leader on the outside.
I have to say that right now the Smokin' Joe's has elevator problems in that front end, the canards. I do not think they're working because every time he steps on it, his nose comes up, he backs off so that he won't come over backwards. He's on the inside, he gets the lead temporarily, but watch the American Dream with Dave Villwock come on just like that.
He's got the acceleration coming out of the corner, no question about that. The American Dream on the far outside, going the further course, but so far able to hold his speed very, very high. Dave Villwock in the blue and white Pico's American Dream has the lead. Smokin' Joe's now in second, and he's got a battle with the Tide boat. Nate Brown doing a good job of holding his boat in third place. Now, the Smokin' Joe had wing problems in that accident. Apparently, they jammed when he went end over end. So the front wings, or the canards as we call them, on that boat are jammed, and they're trying to loosen them up, but apparently it's not working just right at this point. There's your lead boat, the American Dream, and you can see the distance he now has over second place. If Mark Tate has a worry, it's the boat to the left of him as you look at the screen here, and that's, of course, the Tide boat, Nate Brown, and he's holding even with him.
And the American Dream has picked up from 136 to 141 in speed on this lap number 2. As we look at our Sea-Doo scoreboard, he's come down the back chute for the final time. He's about a half a lap away from the checker flag. As we look at Smokin' Joe's in second place, the Tide is in third.
We remind all of the people watching again for the first time that the more these boats go around the course, each lap the course gets a little bit rougher. There's more wake action out there, and things can happen. But it was a smooth ride for Dave Villwock in the American Dream, who takes first. Second place goes to the Smokin' Joe's. Third place will go out to the Tide boat. As you can see there, these are the cumulative points on the day. A2 Communications has 769 as he takes fourth for the first time today. This is Lake Lewisville in Lewisville, Texas, and we'll be back to more racing action in the HydroFest in just a moment. Well, all day long we've been talking about a lot of horsepower on the water. How about some horsepower off the water? Yeah, big and little. The Texas Rangers with the big horses, and these kids enjoying some pony rides. You know, it's a festival whenever the unlimited hydroplanes come to town. Let's get back to the big horsepower on the water as the hydroplanes get ready for the next race. Let's go back to the last race and the winner, Dave Villwock.
Overcoming controversy, winning this one, that puts you in the final.
Well, yeah, we got there. It's been a long road and a tough road today. But the boat keeps running really, really good. And Dan Walters, Ken Ford, Fred Leland, yeah, every time they send me out there in that boat, it's just a sweetheart to drive and makes me look good.
Any strategy in the final?
We're going to try to go to the front if we can. So we'll see.
Well, the piston-powered A2 Communications has not had any real problems. 2 second places so far today, but some problems for the Smokin' Joes.
Mark, I understand you're running without canards. Is it going to be that way all day?
Well, yeah, you know, it looks that way. We really damaged one of the main structure parts of the canard on the right side, and I broke the pedal in the boat. I pushed on them so hard when I was going into the air at elevating. But they've been in stationary position, and we made some boat adjustments from the second heat that we ran to this heat. After getting the boat repaired, and it's better, but I just can't use any of the horsepower. So we're going to try and see if we can get the canards to work, but it's very doubtful.
All right, let's check the lineups now for Heat 3B, and we'll get down to the final race pretty soon. The Miss Budweiser, Mike Hansen in lane 1, Steve David in T+ lane 2, and on the outside, Mark Evans in the Miss X side for this 3-lap sprint.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the boats go. I'm sure the Miss Budweiser is going to be favored by a lot of folks standing on the shore, but the Miss X side had a very good run earlier, as did the T+. And remember, Steve David is the defending champion in the overall event. There's the start for Heat 3B. Now to the right of your screen, that is the Miss Budweiser in lane number 1. Lane number 2 is the Miss X side, and there you see the Miss Budweiser off to the left, and that's the rooster tail that Mark Evans is looking at from the inside, picking up a little bit of the spray from that rooster tail, as a matter of fact. Miss Budweiser is taking a wild ride. A little bit of lightness for the T+. He's back in third place. Steve David kind of waves to the crowd there with the boat. Not that he intentionally wanted to, but he did. And here's a good shot, of the wild ride from Mike Hansen.
Not only missing the non-trip surface on the right rear, he's missing the skin off of his tail on the right side. All there is a skeleton, Dick.
As we look at the second place boat, the T+, all in one piece, but riding in second is Steve David, who, as we said before, is the defending champion in this overall event. Miss Budweiser is setting the pace out front. And there's a good shot. You can see how there's no skin on the right side of the wing. A good shot from inside, and I've got to say that the in-boat cameras have been just terrific this year. You can see the Miss Budweiser's rooster tail in the distance. This is looking at it there, and he's getting good speed out of the boat. Mike feeling more and more confident each time he gets in. There you see the T Plus, and I say again, that boat tends to ride light. That's the way Steve David likes it.
And the wind continues to churn up Lake Lewisville right here, and look at the Budweiser bounce off at corner number 4 again, Dick.
Mike Hansen is having a wild ride, but I'll tell you what, he is manhandling that boat. He has really got the touchdown more and more. He is feeling very confident about what he's doing out there. And right now he is leading the race, looking for a checkered flag. And as you look down on the boat, you can see where the skin is missing off of the tail section of the Miss Budweiser, and the airflow through there will affect the ride of the boat. Good shot to show you the distance up to first place from the second place boat, the T Plus. Stephen David seeing that rooster tail far off in the corner, right now settling for second place. He'd like to just get the points, get into the final, hope at that point that he can really unload that engine and do some good things. This is the lead boat. This is Mike Hansen driving for Bernie Little out of Lakeland, Florida. He has really got the boat responding with all the damage that has been done to that boat. A checkered flag is starting to fly now from atop the starter's tower. Here he comes. You can hear. Wait a minute. The T Plus, Jim. The T Plus has gone down.
And it's going to be the X-Side taking over second place. X-Side will take over second as they come down to take the checkered flag. It is the Budweiser first. X-Side will be second, and the T Plus will not finish.
And that's going to affect them in the points. It'll knock them from having the second choice of lane in the final all the way down to fifth.
We found out that the bouncing, they have an outside shut-off fuel valve in case there's a fire. It is closed on him and it starved the engine of gas. That's the word from the pits.
Well, here are the results. Miss Budweiser followed by the Miss X-Side, and it did not finish for the T Plus. Those are the cumulative points on the day. Miss Budweiser with 1,200 points. Steve David saying, what happened? He's going to have to get a tow to get that boat back in. No tow for the Miss Budweiser, though. A happy crew greeting a very happy driver. Remember, Mike Hansen stepped into that seat just a week ago in Detroit when Chip Hanauer was injured. A new boat, new driver, and they're leading the pack right at this point.
Here's your final field, and there's the accumulative points for the day, and the high point getter gets to pick his lane first, and so on down the line. We'll have to see how they draw as we get to that winner-take-all final, Dick.
And that's all important. Most people would think right off the bat Miss Budweiser would pick lane 1, but they may prefer to go a little bit further into the mid-pack. Very happy pit area down by the Miss Budweiser as they celebrate the arrival back of Mike Hansen. A little bit of dejection for the T Plus. They are not in the position they want to be. Well, the fans are in the position they want to be because they're having a good old time here in Texas. Dr. Jazz providing that hot music. And the chefs providing some pretty hot food. Hot crawdaddies. We're going to be back with some hot racing, the championship heat for the Texas HydroFest in a moment. Back at Lake Lewisville in Lewisville, Texas, right outside of Dallas. Dick Griffin along with Jim Hedrick and Steve Montgomery. The unlimited hydroplanes taking the course, heading out onto the course to warm up for the championship race this afternoon. But before we show you that, let's take a moment to show you some other competition that was held here on Lake Lewisville. Grand National Hydroplanes, 22-foot boats that race a 1.25 mile course. Steve David driving the Miss Blockbuster. Yes, the same Steve David that drives the Unlimited, the T Plus, and there he is taking the lead early. Randy Haas in the Leroy International giving valiant chase in second place. Steve David in the Miss Blockbuster, you're looking at him right there. He, of course, the defending champion in the Unlimited class of racing here on Lake Lewisville. A lot of the drivers that move up into the Unlimiteds drive in this class of boat or one just similar to it before moving up into the big Unlimiteds. You can see they have a rather violent reaction to the waves as they hit through and fly across the tops. They do a lot of wing walking. A lot of good deck-to-deck action further back in the pack. Steve David, Miss Blockbuster, really no question about it. First-class driver, first-class equipment. They take it from wire to wire. He even has time to give a little wave to the fans. Incidentally, notice it is an open cockpit in that boat as compared to his ride in the Unlimited, which is a closed cockpit. And the Unlimited's now coming down for the start of the championship heat here in the HydroFest.
In lane number 1 here in the winner-take-all final, it'll be Miss X-Side with Mark Evans. By choice, Mike Hansen takes lane 2 in the Miss Budweiser. Lane 3 in the middle of the pack, the only piston packer in the field, the A2 Communications with Mitch Evans. In lane number 4, it'll be the Tide, driven by Nate Brown. Lane number 5, the T Plus, with Steve David driving. In lane number 6, it'll be Smoke and Joe's, driven by Mark Tate. And the trailer boat for this one will be the American Dream, driven by Dave Vilwalk.
Oh boy, a lot of horsepower assembled out on the course as the boats come down. Everybody is in their lane. They are now eyeing the start line to see if they get the flag to go. Look at the lineup, and they do. They are off and running. Boy, there is jockeying for position as they go down into turn number 1. The referees have to watch closely to make sure all lanes are maintained. It looks like the Miss Budweiser in lane number 2 made a very wise choice for the start. Mike Hansen has taken that boat out to the front. Mike Hansen in the Miss Budweiser is leading and hits a little bit of wave action, and no boats have preceded it, so that means the course is going to be rough.
And you're looking, second place is the Tide, and the third place is, I believe, the T Plus, and this is a 5-lapper.
Now remember, the T Plus, Steve David won his first unlimited hydroplane race here last year in this race. He is the defending champion. Now the boats are sorting out, and we're starting to see some lane changes. Still, the Miss Budweiser out in the lead.
And he's now moved over on the buoy line to hold the Miss Budweiser tight, and you can see the Tide in that orange and white boat from our aerial shot trying to catch the leader, and we're inside the Miss X side, driven by Mark Evans.
Mark back in 4th place in the Miss X side, getting a good view there of the lead boats out in front of him. He's hoping that one of them will make a mistake. The Tide boat is right up there in 2nd place, riding literally on the outside of the rooster tail for Mike Hansen in the Miss Budweiser. Whoa! Miss Budweiser really coming through and chomping through that turn. Because of that missing part on the back end of the boat, Jim, it's like he has to literally manhandle it through the turn.
It's called the non-trip, where it should come out of the turn very smoothly. It digs in. It could violently turn his nose to the right. He's got to watch that for this whole race, as once again, our cameras are inside the Miss X side.
You can see the rough water breaking up over the bow of the Miss X side. Mark Tate riding in 3rd in the Smokin' Joes. Let's not forget that boat caught fire earlier in the day. He'd like to catch a little fire now off the back end of that boat and get it moving a little faster. Miss Budweiser very, very rough through the turns. You can see there that missing part on the back of the boat, right on the trailing end, and you can see also the skin missing off of that wing on the back of the boat. That's all affecting the ride, but still the boat is in 1st place. Mike Hansen just has got to be holding that steering wheel to the white knuckle point as he turns it and forces that boat into the turn. T Plus has got a weak wing. Look at that whole structure on the back of the boat is starting to go, and that means that he can no longer count on it for stability.
Oh my goodness, has this boat taken a pounding? All the boats have taken a pounding in this rough water on Lewisville Lake in high winds, as once again we look at our leader skipping through, almost losing control. Hang on, Mike Hansen.
Boy, he has had a ride in this boat. This is an E-ticket at its very, very best. That wing structure in the back looks like it's loosening just a little bit on the Miss Budweiser. I can't even imagine that that thing is even on the boat at this point, the way he's been crashing it through the turn, because as he comes around, it's the back end of the boat that's grabbing. As we said, these are like dirt track racers. You throw that back end, but you hope that it'll come smooth around as the skid fin kicks in. On the Miss Budweiser, it's literally taking a bite out of the water. 2nd place, the Tide boat, is driven by Nate Brown. He has had a very good ride in that boat all day long.
And we're looking at Mark Evans and Miss Exide, who has battled the Smokin' Joes with Mark Tate this entire heat for 3rd place. They're currently 4th. And here comes the Miss Budweiser, the wounded bird, if you will. Look at
the tail section, Jim. It's missing. He has totally destroyed the tail section. I'm telling you, this has been one of the roughest races we've seen. The T Plus had a weak tail, and this tail now is completely off the boat. Mike Hansen takes the checkered flag. Bernie Little doesn't care about damage to the boat. He says, bring it home in pieces, but bring it home a winner. 2nd place, and in very good shape compared to the rest of the field, is the Tide boat. There you see the Miss Budweiser just winding down.
And the T Plus went dead in the water, is now restarting, and we hear that fuel shut off on the outside. That valve slammed closed again, but this time he restarted by opening the valve from the inside. And here's your final order of finish. It's the Miss Budweiser winning it with a perfect 1,600-point day. Then the Tide, Smokin' Joes, Miss Exide, T Plus, and A2 Communications.
An exciting day of racing here at Lake Lewisville in Texas, and the man who's celebrating is Mike Hansen, who is a championship winner after only 8 heats of racing in the Miss Budweiser. And out of those 8 heats, he's won 5. Yeah, there he is. Mike Hansen giving you a little wave, a little applause. Give him a wave, too, if you want. We'll be back in a moment. The championship of the '94 Texas HydroFest has been decided. The Miss Budweiser, Mike Hansen, the driver of the boat. We'll get to him in just a moment.
Now let's take a look at the Eagle Snacks O'Doul's High Point Championship run. Smokin' Joe's has a mere 150-point lead over Miss Budweiser, who did very well today. The Tide is third, Miss Exide fourth, and the T-Plus in the High Point standings is fifth.
Michael Hansen looks good in red, and then he's in the winner's circle.
Hey, this is a great feeling. This is a tribute to the crew. They did a tremendous job to keep this thing in one piece. I kept on tearing it up all day long, just trying to keep it out in front. And they kept on piecing it back together and making a better boat ride for us. And I can't thank Bernie Little and the Budweiser team more for the opportunity that I got to have a lifetime dream come true for me today.
Bernie, you're going to run out of boat just about in time here.
Yeah, they're going to weigh it, and there's so much of it missing, I'm not so sure what we'll weigh. But what an outstanding job he did, and the Tide did it great. All the boats were out there running pretty good, and with the way the water was, I think we were very fortunate.
Mike, who's this happy guy back here?
Oh, this was my father here.
Oh, yeah.
He's the one that taught me to be competitive and gave me the drive to get here, and I can't thank him enough either. He deserves a lot of the credit.
Dwayne, I know you flew down from Seattle. It was worth the trip.
Oh, was it ever? It was a wonderful trip, and what a day. What a day.
Well, both the Budweiser and the Smokin' Joe camps have their own repair jobs coming up. And boy, I mean, lots of repair work. One boat placed well and still in one piece. Back down on the dock, let's go to the Tide camp.
We've got one piece of a boat here that's got no parts missing. That's great, isn't it?
That's true, and you saw the boat ahead of you, and you saw what happened. As a matter of fact, what did happen? Did you ever see that tail come off?
Well, the radio, they said, there's a wing in the water. There's a wing in the water. I'm going, I don't see no wing in the water. So I never saw it, and we lucked out. We missed it because I was running right in his spray because that's the smoothest water. It was rough out there. And so the best place I could be was right in his spray, and I had to keep closing the door on the Smokin' Joe's. I hated to do that to him, but this is the final heat, and this is the payday for me. So yeah, I wanted to beat him.
Well, the recreational boaters take over again on Lake Lewisville as the unlimited hydroplanes travel to Evansville, Indiana for Thunder on the Ohio. For Steve Montgomery and Jim Hendrick, this is Dick Crippen. So long. The Texas HydroFest has been sponsored by O'Doul's, what beer drinkers drink when they're not drinking beer, and by Eagle Snacks for the crunch you crave. Unlimited hydroplane racing is sanctioned by the American Powerboat Association. This has been a production of Diamond P Sports in association with ESPN.